Okay, this is 8th grade lesson 3.5. Our objective today, students will write a system of linear equations as well as solve that system of equations. The standards covered are 8EE, 8A, B, and C. The page numbers out of the hardcover book are pages 132 through 137, and out of the practice journal, pages 71 through 74. Yesterday, we worked on some activities. Today, we're going to continue to work systems of equations and some story problems. So we worked system of equations back in chapter 2, the end of chapter 2. Today we're going to be working story problems and having to pull that information and then solve the system of equations. So it says a bank teller is counting $20 bills and $10 bills. There are 16 bills that total $200. Write and solve a system of equations to find the number X of $20 bills and the number Y of $10 bills. So they've gone ahead and set up our equation. So our initial equation, so we've got our X is going to represent our $20 bills, plus our Y is going to represent our $10 bills, and we know that there are 16 bills total. Okay, we also know that the X's are worth $20, so 20 times X, and the Y's are worth $10, and we know that together they equal $200. So we're going to go ahead and write up these equations. So just in the way that you're used to seeing them, this first equation up here would look like this: X plus Y equals 16. And then in order for us to get that into y-intercept format, which is what we have to be able to do our system of equations, we would have to get X out of there. So right now it's a positive X, so minus X. So our first equation is Y equals 16 minus 1X. Okay, so now our second equation was this one, and that is 20 X's, or 20 times our number of X's, plus 10 times our number of Y's equals $200. Okay, we want to get Y by itself, so we're going to have to subtract the 20X minus 20X, and then divide by 10 to get it to say Y equals. So we now know that this equation is Y equals, we'll put it doesn't matter if our X's are first. We're used to seeing it that way, but in this case, since we're solving it algebraically, it doesn't matter. So 200 divided by 10 is going to give us 20, minus 20 divided by 10 is going to give us 2X. So there's our equations, our Y equal format equations. Okay, so now we're going to work algebraically and solve for X. So since they both say Y equals, we can now write them out equal to each other. So 20 minus 2X equals 16 minus 1X. Okay, so we're going to move one of our X's. I'm going to go ahead and move this negative 2X, so plus 2X. Plus 2X. So we get negative 1 plus 2X is going to give me 1X, and that's a positive. We still have 16. And on this side I have 20. Okay, so now if I go through, I would get rid of this 16. And that's a 20, not a 26. So 20 minus 16 gives me 4 equals 1X. I just found out that my X's is 4 of them. Okay, and just a reminder what the X's were, those were our $20 bills. So we have 4 $20 bills. Okay, so for my Y's, I can go through and pick one of my original equations. If I go through and I pick it maybe here and I put my original equation even before I solved for Y, I could go ahead and put a 4 right here. So if I do 1 times 4, that's going to give me 4. 16 minus 4 is going to give me 12. So that was my $10 bills. Okay, so if I have 12 $10 bills, that's $120. And 4 $20 bills, that's 80. That does give me the 200. So I also have 16 bills, which matches both of these final answers. Okay, so that's working a system of equations in a real world scenario. All right, let's go ahead and try another one here. Oops. Okay, and you should be doing these on your whiteboard as I'm doing them so that you're practicing how to pull the information out. Okay, so here our scenario that we have the length of the rectangle is 1 more than 3 times the width. So if we knew the width, we could take it times 3 to figure out the length. Write and solve a system of linear equations to find the dimensions of the rectangle. So some other information they're giving us is the perimeter is 42. So our first equation, we're going to write the length equation. So how could we find the length? Well, the length is going to be equal to 3 times the width plus 1, right? Is 1 more than, yes, so plus 1. And our perimeter equation is the perimeter is equal to, well, to find perimeter, you would do your length plus your width plus your length plus your width, or 2 lengths plus 2 widths. Okay, but the thing is I've never had where I have 3 variables, but notice here they're telling me the perimeter right here. Right here's my perimeter of 42, so I'm going to substitute that in for this P. Okay, so there's my 2 equations, and I want them both in the L equals format because I got to figure out what the L is. Okay, so if I want to get L by itself in this bottom equation, I would have to do minus 2W. So minus 2W, and that's a positive 42, divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2. So now I've got, this is one of my equations, and my second one is L equals negative 2 divided by 2 is going to give me negative 1W plus 42 divided by 2 is 21. Okay, so there's my second equation that I can use. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and write those out equal to each other. So I'm going to leave the L's off. So I have 3W plus 1 is equal to negative 1W plus 21. My 1 kind of got mixed in with my box there. Okay, so now to go ahead and solve for W, well, we would go plus 1 to get rid of it, plus 1W. So we have 4W plus 1 equals 21. So minus 1, 4W equals 21 minus 1 is 20. So divide by 4. Divide by 4. We just found out the width is 20 divided by 4, which is 5. So the width equals 5. So now to find our length, we can substitute it into either of our equations. I'm going to go ahead and substitute it in here. So I'm going to put a 5 right here. 3 times 5 is 15 plus 1 gives me 16. Okay, and if I want to check myself, I can check according to the perimeter. 16 plus 16 is 32, plus 5 is 10, so 32 plus 10 does equal to 42. Okay, so there's another form of system of equations in a real world scenario. Okay, so let's go ahead and practice some that are a little bit easier. And I'm going to do one, and then you guys will do one on your own on this one. Okay, so I have the sum of 2 numbers is 35. So 2 numbers, we'll just say x and y. The sum means to add. So x plus y equals 35. Okay, so that's the yellow statement. The green statement. The second number, y, is equal, sorry I didn't pull this out all the way, is equal to 4 times the first number x. So the second number y is equal to 4 times the first number, so 4 x's. Okay, so that first equation, this one here, I have to get into the y equals format. So I'm going to have to subtract the 1x. So minus 1x in the back end here. Okay, so here's my 2 equations. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and solve. So we've got 35 minus 1x is equal to 4x. Since we already have the x's by themselves on the right side, we're going to move this x, so plus 1x. Plus 1x. 35 equals 5x. So we'll divide by 5. Divide by 5. We find out that our x equals 35 divided by 5 is 7. Okay, so now if I want to figure out what y is, I'm going to substitute in. And it doesn't matter which equation, I'm going to plug it into this one right here. 4 times 7 gives me 28. Okay, so there's my solution to my system of equations. Okay, so I want you to try this next one. Oops, what the heck? I'm not quite sure how that came off there, but okay, so number 4. So you're going to try this one. The sum of two numbers is 20. So your two numbers are x and y. The second number, y, is, so equals, 3 times the first number. Write and solve the system of equations to find the two numbers. So you're going to solve for x and for y. So go ahead and write out your equations and then solve for x and y. So you can pause your video now and then check back when you're finished to make sure that you have your answers correct. Okay, so for your system of equations here, you should have ended up with x is 5 and y is 15, so 5 comma 15. All right, so now we're going to work a little bit with working off of a graph. So here's another situation. We've got a graph here and some information. It says the Airbus A320 and the Boeing 777. And it gives us some information. So when our x is 0, so our x is our number of minutes, and our y is our altitude in thousands of feet. So for Airbus A, it was over to 0, up to 0, over to 1, up to 1,000. So since these are in thousands, I'm just going to go up to 1. Over to 2, up to 2,000. Over to 3, up to 3,000. And over to 4, up to 4,000. So what are we noticing for our equation for our first one? So for our Airbus A, and remember these are like those are like our y's because we have two separate sets. For the first equation, we have our y equals, and I'm just going to go off of my graph over here. Well, it started at 0, so it's going to be plus 0. And then our change in our y's, our change here, was 1,000 every time. So it went up 1,000 every time. So 1,000x. Oops, and I wrote 100x. Now, normally we don't have to put that plus 0 in there, but I'm putting in there just so that you're understanding that I did remember to check the y-intercept. Okay, so for the second situation, so we're done looking at this part right now. When we graph this second set, it's going to be over to 0 up to 9,000. So our 9 is 9,000. Over to 1 up to 8,500. So that's going to fall somewhere in there. And then over to 2 up to 8,000. Over to 3 up to 7,500. And over to 4 up to 7,000. Okay, so you can see that we can approximately figure out where these are going to intersect. But the problem is I was kind of guesstimating on some of those, so it may not be perfect. It looks to me like it's going to be probably at 6 minutes, but I will double check myself on that. Okay, so our equation for our second one is, well, our y equals, it started on our y-intercept at 9,000. And it changed here 500 every time, and it dropped 500. So it's negative 500x. Okay, so to solve it algebraically, just to double check myself, I'm going to write these out as equal to each other. So 1,000x, I could put the plus 0, but I don't need it in there. is equal to negative 500x plus 9,000. Okay, so to get my x's, I already have the x's on the left-hand side, so I'll go ahead and move this one. So plus 500x. Oops. Gives me 1,500x equals 9,000. So now we'll divide by 1,500. Divide by 1,500. So 9,000 divided by 1,500 is going to give me 6. So I was right that my x would equal 6. Oops, I'm going to write it out the proper way. So my x was 6. And it looks like on my graph that it was 6, 6,000, but I'll double check that. So if I substitute in my 6 into this equation here where x is, 6 times 1,000 would give me 6,000. So there is my system of equation solution. So it took 6 minutes and they met at 6,000 feet altitude. Okay, one was taking off and one was coming into land, if you notice. The first one was going up, that one was taking off, and the second one was descending or coming down. Okay, so that's it for this lesson. It's working just some different ways that you can work system of equations. Once again, algebraically, I think is probably the best solution. So you need to get comfortable solving those problems algebraically. Otherwise, just keep plugging away and keep giving it your best effort.